people of Ukraine, there's some very specific actions he can take right now. Just look at some of the steps that President Biden took since he's been president that have given leverage to Vladimir Putin and put billions of dollars in his pocket to finance this war against Ukraine. Not only did he cancel the Keystone Pipeline, his administration hasn't approved a single new pipeline in America. He's okay with Nord Stream 2, it seemed like, for so many months. But then if you look, he put a moratorium on drilling on federal lands. And when the court struck it down just 2 weeks ago, think of how tone-deaf President Biden has been on energy. As Russia is moving over 100,000 troops onto the border of Ukraine, 2 weeks ago, President Biden issued a moratorium, a freeze on all new oil and gas drilling in America, begging Putin to produce more oil. Then, as we talked about, no permits for new pipelines. LNG, there's at least 4 to 6 LNG permits ready to go to send liquefied natural gas to our friends in Europe who could use that natural gas from America so they don't need to get it from Putin. Not one of those permits has been approved by the Biden administration because they're against American energy. They're not against all energy because they're begging OPEC and they're begging Putin through Russia to produce more, but they're shutting it down in America. He could turn that around today. And then, of course, to stop the regulatory attack on American energy that President Biden alone has put in place that he could reverse tonight. And I call on President Biden to take all of these steps immediately tonight, because not only will it help American families, but it will take away Putin's leverage. Think about this number. Today, between the United States, the UK, and the European Union, every single day, we are sending $700 million a day to Putin by buying his oil. $700 million a day going to Putin that we could reverse. Take that money out of his pockets. President Biden needs to stop financing Putin's war with Russian oil because he shut off the spigots of American energy. It's having devastating impacts on the people of Ukraine, but it's putting billions of dollars in Putin's pocket. Think about the number again, $700 million a day between the United States, European Union, and UK are going to Russia every single day. President Biden, these failed energy policies are having devastating impacts on Americans, but also on the people of Ukraine because those policies are financing the war. With that, somebody who knows something about energy, my colleague from Oklahoma, Stephanie Bice.
Thank you so much, Steve. I hail from the great state of Oklahoma, the third largest producer in the country of oil and the fourth largest in natural gas. My state knows something about domestic energy. This administration has turned its back on American energy production. Instead, in 2021, the United States purchased 250 million barrels of oil from Russia at a cost of $18 billion. That money went to line the pockets of Vladimir Putin and Russian oligarchs. Instead of buying oil from our adversaries, this administration should help states like Oklahoma, North Dakota, and Texas do what we know best: produce affordable and reliable domestic energy for the nation. And this isn't just about production, though. It's also about pipelines. We must expedite the pipeline permitting process that at one time took roughly 6 months, but under this administration is now taking over 12. Energy is national security, and there has never been a more important time for the U.S. to be energy independent. Besides Oklahoma and Texas being top oil-producing states, we have something else in common. Our communities are dealing with the influx of migrants across our southern border. Over 2 million illegal immigrants crossed into the United States over the last year, and these numbers are growing. On top of this, it is no coincidence that fentanyl overdoses are now the leading cause of death for adults 18 to 45. This deadly drug, which predominantly comes from China, is pouring across an open southern border and killing thousands of Americans. We cannot defend other countries' borders while ignoring our own. Thank you, and at this time, I'd like to bring up Debbie Lesko.
Thank you, Stephanie. Good morning. I'm Debbie Lesko from the great state of Arizona. Tonight, Americans are going to ask two questions. Am I better off under Biden and the Democrat control? And do I trust what Biden is going to tell us? I think clearly the answer is no. In little over a year, under one-party Democrat rule, the State of the Union is in a crisis. Gasoline, grocery, and energy prices are up. Crime has risen through the roof. The border, my state and other states, is wide open. And war has broken out in Ukraine. Remember when Biden promised us he wasn't going to leave one American behind in Afghanistan? And then he did? Remember when candidate Biden criticized Trump, saying if a president is responsible for over 200,000 COVID deaths, he shouldn't be a president? And then under Biden, there was more COVID deaths in 2021 than in 2020? Remember when Biden promised to hold China accountable for COVID, and then he didn't? Not one hearing. Remember when Biden promised there wouldn't be a vaccine mandate? Remember that one? And then he did? Remember when Biden and the Democrats told us, each of us, we better wear a mask or we're going to get in trouble? And then we saw photos of top Democrats around the country not wearing a mask, even in front of kids masked in schools. Remember when Biden said he was going to reduce crime? And instead, crime has skyrocketed? Instead, under Biden and the Democrats, defund the police, let people out of jail, let's not prosecute criminals policies, crime has skyrocketed. Under Biden and Democrat control, more police officers were killed. Cities have seen record murder rates. Fentanyl is killing our kids. So tonight, after President Biden's speech, Americans are going to ask the two questions. Am I better off under Biden and Democrat control? Do I trust that Biden is really going to do what he says he's going to do? The answer to both is no. And now I'd like to turn it over to the ranking member of Foreign Affairs Committee, Mike McCall.
Thanks, Debbie. Thank you, Debbie. You know, weakness invites aggression. It's a historic axiom, and it's true. You look at Chamberlain going to talk to Hitler with a piece of paper that wasn't worth the paper it was written on. And we saw Churchill talk about appeasement and how that invites aggression. And then we had Reagan talk about peace through strength. Putin sees weakness. President Xi sees weakness. The Ayatollah sees weakness. And Kim Jong-un sees weakness. We have a weak president, and he's creating a very dangerous world. The disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan was the beginning of the end. Putin watched that, and he saw a weak and ineffective president. The waiver of Nord Stream 2 sanctions that we passed in Congress, bipartisan, by the way, to put congressional mandatory sanctions, this president waives them in the national security interest of the United States. Explain to me, Mr. President, how that is in our best national security interest, to allow Putin to complete his pipeline into Europe while he cancels the Keystone pipeline and all energy production in this country. Meanwhile, the sanctions exempt energy. 40% going into Europe, almost 10% into the United States of America. We are importing Russian energy. This needs to stop. We are funding Putin's war machine, and it's bad. 40 miles of tanks are lined up just north of Kyiv as I speak, getting ready to move in with these thermobaric bombs that suck the oxygen out of the air and inflame the lungs with fire. They kill children. It is actually, I believe, a war crime. These carve-out sanctions need to go. We need to get tough on this administration, get tough on Putin. Putin has blood on his hands, and it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. General Milley is correct. They're going to win, but they're going to lose in the end. We need to give the people of Ukraine, and we stand with the people of Ukraine here today, and we have a moral obligation. They're not a NATO ally, but we have a moral obligation to give them every weapon and every assistance we possibly can. This administration held up on the assistance that I signed off on in Congress in November, held it up. It's just now coming in. And now they're saying, well, after an invasion, it's more difficult. This is malfeasance, it's negligence. It's actually, it's criminal. I want to leave you with a quote from a text from a Russian soldier who was killed, got a smartphone, and it was read at the United Nations by the permanent representative of Ukraine to the United Nations. It says, "I'm afraid." And it's a letter to his mom, a text to his mom. And it shows you how deceptive and what a monster Putin is. We're bombing all the cities together. He says, "I'm afraid." Targeting civilians. We were told that they welcome us. They would welcome us, that we were liberating them. But they're falling under our armored vehicles, throwing themselves under the wheels, not allowing us to pass. They call us fascist. This is so hard. This is what's happening in Ukraine. You're not seeing the whole story. This is what's happening on the ground, and it's going to get a heck of a lot worse before it gets better. With that, I'm very honored to introduce to you a woman who's been through so much. She's from Ukraine. She has relatives in Ukraine. She hears the stories on a daily basis coming from Ukraine into the United States. Victoria Spartz.
Thank you. I didn't prepare a speech, so I'll talk from my heart. This is not a war. This is a genocide of the Ukrainian people by a crazy man who cannot get over that Ukrainian people do not want socialism, Soviet Union, communists. They want to be with the United States of America. They want to be free people, but they want to be with the West. And he cannot get over. I'll tell you a personal story. I have my grandma, she's 95. She is right now in the city of Chernihiv. Actually, Chernihiv and the part of Kiev Rus studied Moscow and control Moscow. So they're bombing. They couldn't take the city. They're bombing civilians non-stop, day and night, the whole city. She has a daughter. She called her daughter. She lives in a little village by Chernihiv. And her daughter told her they came into village with a heavy machine gun, killed almost every person in that village. And whatever people were left, women and children, they forced them to work in front of the tanks as a human shield because they cannot take that city. So she told, my mom was shocked. She says, "No, don't cry. We are not crying here. We're going to fight, but just give us some guns so we don't just fight with the sticks." This woman was born in Russia, in Far East. She's a Russian-born woman. And they're killing women and children. They doing the bombs, vacuum bombs, carpet bombs. They are using illegal weapons. They now have special groups that trying to kill women and children, try to expect to Western Ukraine. I called my friend and she said she was able to get out. Her friend was trying to get out. She saw a woman in the gas station get shot with her children with machine guns. So she stayed in the city. They're leveling the cities to the ground, destroying the people. They're slaughtering them like animals. They're killing the people. It is not a war. It's a genocide because we have a crazy man that believes that he has the whole world hostage. And then we have a president that talks about, and doesn't do things. You know, and what is he going to wait when millions die? Then he's going to do more? I mean, we have not just a moral duty. We are the leaders of the free world. This is going to be the biggest genocide that ever this world experienced. And they're not asking them to fight for us, but they ask us to help, to become serious, that they have ability to defend themselves. That actually they need to understand that we're serious about this sanction, not do a little bit here, maybe we'll just do a little bit this oligarch, this is bit, that we're serious. And I can tell you one thing, if we don't stop him there, he is not going to stop. He is going to go further. And then we'll have to send our children to die to fight this. So I think we have an obligation and duty to save this world, help Ukrainian people to survive. And this president need to get this act together and exercise some leadership. What's happening under his watch is atrocity. What he's doing to this country and to the world is unforgivable. But I think we'll get together as Republicans and Democrats, but he must act decisively fast, or this blood of many millions of Ukrainians will be on his hands too. And all that oil that with blood that's flowing from Russia and gas, and we are buying that, and Europeans are buying that. There's going to be blood, it's mixed with blood of the Ukrainian people. So I hope you're going to help me to send that message, because we have to be strong and we have to stop. Thank you for having me.
For those who cannot remember history are condemned to repeat it. You just heard the sobering words from Victoria. They weren't about yesteryear, they were about yesterday. Night after night, she gets reports from inside Ukraine itself. The support should have been sent months ago to deter Putin from making that decision. The administration should have never used their political weight to defeat an amendment to stop Nord Stream sanctions. As you listen to Victoria talk about villages of children and women being killed, every single American should look and say, we should not fund $1 of that to Putin. Tonight, I hope that all changes. Tonight, I hope the president stands up and changes course when it comes to the energy policy of America. Let's not send our money to a reckless, evil man that uses it to cause death around the world. Whatever the president says tonight or doesn't say, we cannot ignore the problems this administration has ignited. From a border, simply by his executive orders, become wide open. Fentanyl moving across our country. There's enough fentanyl in America today to kill every single American 7 times over. As you heard, it's the #1 leading cause of death in America for those of the age of 18 to 45. Those on the terrorist watch list that have found a way to enter America that we are catching. More importantly, those that we do not, that have entered. Inflation we haven't seen in more than 40 years. Crime running rampant throughout America based upon a democratic policy of defunding the police and electing DAs who believe in not upholding the law. We cannot sit around and wait, whereas this administration told us that they would send the COVID test to you, just get online. People waited 2 and 3 months. That same thing cannot happen to Ukraine when we're supposed to send them weapons. Every single American wakes up every morning to see, did President Zelensky survive another night? They will not be able to survive another night if we don't supply them with the weapons. They're not asking for American men and women to fight. They're just asking to have some supplies so they could at least have a fair fight. America has a long history withstanding those who believe for freedom. And we need to keep the responsibility that we have led once again. With that, let me open it up for questions. Yes, ma'am.
I have two questions, if I may. First, show of hands. Who's planning to attend the State of the Union tonight? Okay, thank you. And second, can you please respond to Marjorie Taylor Greene attending the white nationalist conference over the weekend?
You know what? I commented on that on yesterday. I understand your job. I understand what you're trying to do. I've already commented on that. We've got a war in Europe that we have not had since World War II. We've got people in a village and others, and you can take my statement that I said yesterday and play it one more time. Yes.
Comedy Dukert from Newsmax. What specific weapons are Republicans willing to fund in this upcoming spending bill? We've seen the GUARD Act and what that entails. Are we talking about anti-aircraft and anti-missile systems, new jets? How far would Republicans be willing to go on this?
I think we'd see, what does Ukraine need to defend themselves? First, they need anti-tank missiles of where we're able to go. They need some air defense support. They need ammunition. They need rifles, machine guns, and others. They've got the long list that they've actually provided to us. I'll leave the military experts to tell us. We've got a lot of military experts directly behind me, and we will be there. The real challenge is, just as I asked the presidents months before, why wouldn't you send them then? If you send them before Putin comes in, there's a really good chance Putin might not enter. Think about how difficult it is to get it into the country today, or even to get it to the front lines, as the cities are being encircled. And if we're going to wait like we had to wait for COVID tests, I'm not sure there'll be someone there to give it to. Imagine if Ukraine had just half of the weapons that were left in Afghanistan. If they'd had just half, I imagine Putin would not have entered. And the interesting part is, they're willing to pay for it because they just want to be able to defend themselves. They're not the aggressors. They just want to defend and save their own families. I think we should be able to supply that. Yes, Chad.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
What's the balance here? Obviously, Republicans are going to be critical of the president, going to listen to what he has to say and take issue with things that you don't like about his remarks tonight. But when you face a crisis in Europe, there used to be this saying about foreign policy stops at the water's edge. Are your members going to be Emily Post about this, or are they going to be on their proper behavior when it comes to this crisis time, when it comes to a national security crisis the United States is dealing with in Europe?
Well, let me be frank. It's not just Republicans. You look at the latest polls of Americans. They don't think America's going in the right direction. They're paying more for gas. There's a tax on every American with the inflation. We want to see a change in course in history. Are we going to sit down and be quiet? No. I don't think Victoria wants to be quiet when she sees people dying night after night. We're going to push the president to do the right thing. We've warned him ahead of time when the Democrats first took power not to pass the $2 trillion so-called COVID bill that only 9% went to it. We warned him it would cause inflation. Yes, that's what happened. We warned him if they opened up the border, what would happen to the rest of America. We went to the border. So what did the president finally do? He put the vice president in charge, who only has been there one time. They've ignored it. When we said crime is running rampant, that we actually think you should fund the police, not defund them, because this is what would happen. This is exactly what's happening across America today with the rise in crime. We've watched it time after time. But it's not just Republicans. It's independents, it's Democrats, it's Americans. We've watched his approval rating being at a lowest level we saw in modern history. Why? And just the handling of what's happening in Ukraine itself. We tried to help the president by passing an amendment about Nord Stream. He used his political weight from his administration to whip members to vote no. We told the president he was wrong with how he was getting out of Afghanistan. If he did that, it would set the course of the world differently. We said it was wrong when he stood with Putin and gave him Nord Stream. We said it was wrong when he opened up negotiations again with Iran. All those actions have put us into the place we are today. So no, we're not going to sit quietly by. We're going to defend our nation, we're going to defend our way of life, and we're going to change the course of where we currently are. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Leader McCarthy. Wondering, obviously every day counts right now in Ukraine. If you could, any sort of insight on the progress, if there is going to be an aid package included in an omnibus, can you give us any insight as to how that is going, the progress so
There's
far?
an aid package that's been brought up. We're going through it as we speak now, talking to the military experts about what's needed as well. We want to make sure it can get there and get there now and not wait. Be able to move items because every day matters with us. We should also work, what's the sad part is, we're watching Europe lead. A lot of actions that the president is taking are only after Europe has taken a lead. Thankfully, President Zelensky didn't take President Biden's advice and leave the country, because we'd be talking today about a collapse. In his short term of administration, Americans have had to evacuate 2 countries. These are individuals that want to stay there and fight, but not use sticks. I think we need to rally the entire world against what Putin is doing and make him change the course. Yes.
Congressman Sparks, can I ask you a follow-up? Thank you for sharing this story. You mentioned that your grandmother's there. I know you probably have other family members. Have you been able to be in contact with them? Are they safe?
No one's safe in that country. It's interesting, my grandma is 95. She experienced Stalin, she experienced Hitler, but she says, we never experienced something like that, ever. This is barbaric and brutal to the level of unbelievable. And I hope United Nations will do some leadership, because this is terrible. We have to deal with that. But I have some friends from college and other people. A lot of people are sitting on the ground. They are bombing non-stop civilians, non-stop, from morning till night. The city of Chernihiv I've been from for last 3 days, bombing non-stop, exploding buildings, hospitals, schools, everything. They cannot even get out. I mean, they have no supplies. They cannot even get out from underground. A lot of people don't even have any ability now to have the phones. Thank God that Elon Musk helps a little bit with some of the stuff. So I really appreciate that he did step up. I hope more private businesses will step up, and like Visa and MasterCard, they say, we're not going to be part of this bloodshed. We're not be criminals. Like, what is he doing is criminal. So some people, you still can connect. Some people you cannot connect, depending where they are. But everyone is on the ground because people understood. They're not fighting the military now. They're fighting to kill civilians, destroy, level to the ground. If you conquer the country, and if you want to govern it, you don't destroy everything to the ground. You don't destroy buildings. You don't put carpet bombs to destroy everything. They want to suppress civilians, but I can tell you, these people went through so much. These people went through so much hardship. Millions were killed by them, by Stalin and Hitler. Almost my whole family was killed by them. These people will not surrender, but we need to give them a chance to survive. Otherwise, they have no chance. We'll have millions of people killed. We need to create a humanitarian corridor for some people to be able to escape, for children, women and children, because he's now shooting at them. I think we have a responsibility. And another thing, I can tell you, Ukraine was the 3rd largest nuclear country. The 3rd largest after Russia and United States. For a good reason, for right reason. We took nuclear weapons from them and signed a piece of paper, tell them we will guarantee your sovereignty. What do you think Iran is not going to be thinking? What do you think about North Korea? If you have nuclear weapon, you are going to hold the whole world hostage. If you don't, anyone come for you and no one will protect you. What is going to set in the whole world? What precedent we're going to set? If we will create a very dangerous world if we don't act decisively, quickly, and have a speed and agility. We need to understand that Putin is not playing chess. He is a judo martial arts player. He understands in judo you have agility, speed, and uses your enemy's weaknesses to strike. And he understood that we were weak. The West was weak. But he's underestimated the West. And I hope this president is going to step up and to show what America is about, because he wants to embarrass our country. And what he's doing is embarrassing for leader of revolt in our country to be there where we are. It's just embarrassing. And he wants to embarrass us again. He knew that we got embarrassed in Afghanistan. He wants to embarrass us again. And I am, as a member of Congress, cannot let him embarrass our country with the greatest country in the world. We are the strongest people in the world. We cannot let him embarrass us, or we will be a laughing stock for the rest of the world. We have to be strong, because I know we have strong people and strong country with the best value. Everyone wants to be here. This is the greatest country, but we need to lead, because there is no one else that can lead around the world. And if we are a strong country, the rest of the world will be strong, and we need to show our strength. So thank you.
We will end on that. Thank you all. Great job. Great job.
Is that my letter? Here's the back one. Oh, the back one here? Great. I mean, it's we're doing a flight I can go or something.
Pull this up?
Yeah, sure. Oh, yeah. I got you. Yeah.
Everybody else.